Hello and welcome. This month we are going to be focusing on the wonderful Alverno alums that are taking time to volunteer in their communities. Today I'm joined by Jennifer Montgomery. Jennifer, would you mind sharing just a little bit about yourself and what does your 9 to 5 role look like?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Moira. So I am professionally a vice president commercial banker with BMO Harris Bank. I've been in banking since 2001, so I have been in the business a long time. I graduated Alverno in 2004, so I've actually been doing this since while I was a student there, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But my typical 9 to 5 these days is getting back into the office. So BMO has been in person in a hybrid way. We've been working from home and the office for quite a while, but have been getting back into the office and out in in-person meetings more and more, which is fun. So my typical day, I don't really have a typical day because every day they can be totally different. The long story short is I really love my job. I love working for BMO, and it really is the variety of the job that keeps me interested. So commercial banking, for those who don't know, is kind of the part of banking that works with businesses and larger corporations. And so I'm a banker to those businesses. And so a portion of my job is managing those relationships and working with the CEOs and CFOs and treasurers and all of the people that handle banking and have ownership interest and helping them with whatever they may need on a day-to-day basis, as well as looking forward for long-term strategic goals for their businesses. And then another portion of my job is business development. And so both of those require agility and creative thinking and problem solving and networking and all of the things that Alverno helped me become comfortable with, if not excellent at, but with practice, everything gets a little better. So I'm in the office much of the time. I'm out on meetings, and those meetings are either at a business, at a coffee shop, at a restaurant, at a bar sometimes. Love a good happy hour. Pre-COVID, we would also be entertaining clients and prospects at various sporting events and performances. And so it really kind of all over the place. I have, as a banker, I have taken up golfing and shooting. We do some hunting outings and pheasant huntings and sporting plays. So I do all of it. But the nuts and bolts is customer facing, relationship management, and problem solving.
Sounds like never a dull moment, which is right up my alley.
Yeah.
I know, and I love that your LinkedIn bio, it proclaims that you're an accidental banker. How did you end up in the world of finance? I know you were a professional communications major at Alverno. And so how did finance kind of fall onto your path?
Yeah. So while going to Alverno, I needed a job. I was putting myself through school for the most part. My parents helped me a tiny bit at the beginning. So I just had to get a job. And I lived on the east side in Milwaukee. I had my own apartment, which was incredibly cheap by today's standards. And I just had to support myself. So I had applied for a variety of jobs, wound up getting a job with M&I Bank at the time. And that was in 2001. And it was just an entry-level job with their HR department. So I worked in the corporate training group at M&I downtown. And at a certain point, I realized, I really like working for the bank. I like M&I. Like this is really cool. I feel like this is a good company to work for long term. But if I'm going to work for a bank, I really want to know what a bank does. And I was, a step removed from that, working in HR in the corporate training department. And so I shifted my career and moved into roles that moved me into knowing how a bank works. So I went from HR to a personal banker role in more of an operations area. And then I was a subject matter expert and did more technical things with systems and programming. And then I moved into treasury management, cash management, which for people familiar with banking, they know what that is. And then I moved into commercial banking. So as a banker, who is the lead relationship manager. So really it was by accident. It just happened to be the job that I got while I was going through school. And I stuck with it because I thought, this is really good. It's funny though, because when I was going to Alverno as a professional communications major, in my mind, I was going to school to become someone in marketing or public relations or advertising. That was my dream. And that sounded like a lot of fun. But as I was in banking, it turned out that I could apply everything I was learning in banking, in sales, and learn the things that I needed through the business, but apply everything I was learning through school and put it together towards a successful career. So happy accident with a lot of hard work.
That's great. And we'll talk a little bit in a few minutes about the 8 abilities and how it ties into your work. But it sounds like you really were able to put a majority of those into practice in terms of not only being a professional communicator, but also being, a global citizen in terms of understanding that not everyone is working in the same sphere as you. And obviously the problem solving comes into play quite a bit. So that's great to hear that those all came into practice. So in addition to your role as a banker, you are also a board member of Revitalize Milwaukee and a former member of the Wisconsin Association of Finance Professionals. So what drew you to these organizations and what do you love the most about each of them?
Yeah. So earlier on in my career, but as I was getting my footing and having a professional career, I wasn't in the entry-level positions anymore. I was encouraged by more senior colleagues to advance my networking and just get out of my own bubble professionally. And so I joined as a member for the Wisconsin Association for Financial Professionals. And that is a group, it's a professional group in primarily the Milwaukee area, but slightly broader. People that are in treasury related roles and accounting related roles, things like that. So I joined that as a member to learn. It's an educational association. And when the opportunity came up to join their board, I just went for it. And so I was secretary for that organization for a number of years and helped coordinate events like the monthly meetings and the logistics of things. And so I got to know a variety of people doing that and learn, additional information that I wasn't exposed to in my day-to-day job. So that was more of a selfish interest in going that route. And it was great, and I'm still involved to a degree, although as my career has shifted, I've also had to, shift the time that I'm spending on different things. So at this point in my career, I as a commercial banker, we all are not expected, but a lot of what we do is networking and leveraging our networks of connections. And so one of the ways that I wanted to do that while also being true to myself was becoming active in a nonprofit or nonprofits. And so it took me a while to find the right fit. And by talking with other people within the bank and other networks, I was able to get connected with an organization called Revitalize Milwaukee, as you know. And so Revitalize really filled a hole for me that I didn't know was there. And it just was like an aha moment when I learned about it, when I met with the CEO, Lynnea Katz-Petted, who's also an Alverno alum. It was like, I love you so much, let's do this. And it was off to the races. So I originally joined the organization as a member on the Fund Development Committee, which is their fundraising committee outside of the core business. And from there was asked to join the board of directors, which of course I said yes to. What an honor. And so I've been a part of that for over a year now. I'm also the chair of the Fund Development Committee at this point. So it's really, it's been great. Both the Wisconsin Association for Financial Professionals, as well as being involved in Revitalize, has given me an outlet for professional interests as well as personal interests, and combining that and giving me a way to give back to the community and bring all of my networks together. Because we all do what we do during the day to make a living, but it's more than that. We're making a life, and so I like to have personal connections or develop a personal connection with people beyond just the work that we're all doing every day. And so being able to share a personal interest, something that I am passionate about, helps me get people to know who I am at my core. And Revitalize is a really great way to do that.
That's great. And we, of course, love Lynnea. She's an alum, as you mentioned, and is doing so much with Revitalize. And I feel like you're especially equipped in a sense because you have gone through a lot of the banking pieces that that fulfill the needs of our city. So commercial banking, obviously, we've had a really wonderful kind of resurgence of businesses and startups and things like that coming to the city, which is great. And obviously, Revitalize focuses predominantly on the residential kind of care of our residents. But also, you understand what is going on in some of these neighborhoods, and you can understand really, the need for it, and how not only do our Milwaukeeans need the support of the city, but they support the city, which is great. So it's wonderful to hear that you found an Alverno alum as well in the process, and we're so proud of both of you for all the work that you're doing. When reflecting on your path to board membership, what stands out to you the most as one of the greatest rewards or one of your biggest successes that you've kind of accumulated along the way?
Yeah, so the ability to make an impact in the community is first and foremost. And with Revitalize, that is so evident because the group, for people who don't know, Revitalize Milwaukee is essentially a nonprofit construction company that serves low-income homeowners in the area. And so individuals who need assistance will apply, and once they qualify, Revitalize will send a contractor or volunteers into the home to make necessary repairs so that these individuals can remain in their homes in a safe manner. And so when I donate my time, talents, and treasures, in terms of dollars, and encourage my peers and my network to do the same, that directly affects the ability of the organization to turn around and help one more homeowner, two more homeowners. And this help is, for example, installing a toilet where someone doesn't have working plumbing, installing a new security door because their door was damaged during a break-in. I mean, these are things that are horrific to think about, and many of us have never needed to, it's never crossed our minds that we would not have a working toilet or that our front door wouldn't lock. And so being able to step outside of yourself and recognize that there are people that live in these situations and that we can immediately affect their day-to-day lives and their security and their well-being, it's just so awesome. So that's first and foremost. Besides the good work that the organization does, meeting all of the people that are like-minded and doing the same things, working towards the same goals, absolutely amazing. Lynnea, for one, I love her to death. She's so great. But when you get connected with these people who are just so passionate, you start to know the people that they know, and they have this, so it's just this compounding effect. It's this beautiful butterfly effect, and you get outside of your little bubble of people, and you get to know other people and just continue to expand your perspective on life and on your professional life and your personal life. And it's just awesome. I mean, meeting the people that are doing the good work is fantastic. And there's a large part of me that wants to quit my job and get in a nonprofit and just do that full time. But I also have to stop myself and realize, okay, we can't all do that. So maybe I should stay and do what I'm doing professionally, continue to make a difference in the ways that I can in my community, in my professional community, but then also use that to help my community outside of the professional world. And so that's where I'm at right now. So absolutely, it's the good work that is being done and the people that you meet along the way.
That's wonderful. And I really appreciate that you mentioned kind of the time, talent, and treasure, because I think oftentimes people associate volunteering with, oh, I can go just work on a Saturday morning to clean up the riverbeds or things like that. But it's also so much more, as you kind of touched on, with opening up your network and also being able to connect with other people's networks. And one of the things that I love is my ability to say, I might not have an answer for you, or I might not be able to get you in front of that person, but I'll find someone that can help you. And I, as you kind of touched on a little bit as well, of we do need people that are willing to kind of get involved in that way and share their talents. And to me, treasure is money, but it's also your networks and your experiences and things along those lines. So I really appreciate that you touched on that. And it's so important, I think, to kind of change the mindset of what being a volunteer is, or what getting involved with a nonprofit is obviously financial pieces of it are a huge aspect that needs to be focused on, but also there's so many other ways that you can get involved and give back. And so I really am grateful that you included that as well. In terms of kind of the more significant challenges that you face as it relates to board membership, are there any things that stand out to you as being especially memorable in terms of a growth opportunity, is how I kind of like to look at it? Is there anything that stands out to you in that regard?
Yeah, I think, to your point, as a young person, as a child, I volunteered. And so kind of on your volunteering journey, there's various stages. The initial stages are the hands-on volunteer, cleaning up a river, or volunteering in a school, or doing the work, doing what you can yourself. And then from there, you kind of mature in the volunteering means and how you think about volunteering. And so for me, the biggest challenge was getting comfortable with the idea that what I do volunteering and what I do professionally don't have to be two separate things, and that there is a way for them to coexist. And originally I thought, there's a conflict of interest. I shouldn't be talking about Revitalize Milwaukee while I'm talking about, I'm being paid to be a banker, so I really shouldn't. But once I got my mind around how to do that, and that it really isn't a conflict of interest, we're all humans, we're all members of this community. And if I'm not talking about who I am and what I do, then that's really leaving a part of me off the table. And there's no reason to do that. There's no reason to feel like my customers and the people that I do business with shouldn't know about this other part of me. So that was the biggest challenge, honestly, because I was like, all right, I'm 100% dedicated to my job and to BMO, and then I'm also super dedicated to helping the community and working with Revitalize. So once I got my mind around that, it made me feel, it was just this huge sense of relief. Like, okay, I can do this simultaneously. It's not a daytime and nighttime kind of thing. It's just a evolution of just, thinking about both all of the time.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that stood out to me while you were talking is the idea of becoming an accidental banker, but also you're kind of a subconscious advocate for Revitalize, in that it's such a huge part of your life and your passion and things like that. And as we kind of touched on, is you might be unconsciously opening new doors for them and in those conversations. And so I think that, I can totally appreciate trying to kind of separate the two worlds, but also really kind of coming to that realization that they are very much connected as well, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. And it's good to hear that not only has that been something that you've kind of faced head on, but also learned how to navigate around and come to terms with the fact that those don't have to be two very separate entities within your life, which is great. You touched on a little bit of advice in terms of starting out young with the hands-on opportunities. What is some advice that you'd offer to professionals who are looking to enter that pipeline into leadership or into a board membership role via a volunteer opportunity?
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are so many ways to get involved that it can be daunting. And, I think you can very easily just get frozen in and not know what to do. So don't try to figure it out on your own. I mean, for me, I never would have found Revitalize on my own. First of all, they kind of fly under the radar, which I'm trying to stop and get them above the radar so everyone knows about them. But everyone knows someone who is well connected, even if we ourselves are not well connected. So I think it's really great to talk to the people in your circle that are those super connectors that you do look up to, and just say, I would like to become more involved in the community. I'd like to get more involved in leadership opportunities. Do you have any advice for me? Or do you know of any organizations that might be a good fit? And socialize that with the people that you respect, and have them help you, direct you to different options, because they're the ones that are going to, really respect you, know who you are, what you're about, and help you find that good fit, rather than you just, Googling it, or I don't have a web. Maybe there's a really great website that can do this for you. But in my opinion, leverage the people that know you to help you find the right path. And you can even be honest with them if it's like, I want to do something completely unrelated to my professional self. This is what I'm passionate about. Do you know anybody in this area? And that's been extremely helpful for me. Another thing is we have LinkedIn. Everybody is on LinkedIn for the most part. And if you go on LinkedIn, you can search by Alverno alums. So, if there's a specific organization that you're interested in, see if there's someone from Alverno that works there or volunteers there. See if there's, it doesn't have to be an Alverno connection, but all of the things that you might connect to someone on, city that you're from, the city you live in, we all, for the most part, live in the Milwaukee area, but, use LinkedIn and search the opportunities out and look for people and be brave and just reach out to them. Send them a message. You don't have to send a connection request. I feel like that's a little creepy sometimes. But, cold call someone, say, hey, your profile is awesome. I'm really inspired by this group and this work, and I'd love to get involved. Would you be open to talking? Or can I send you an email? I'd love to learn more about your journey. And for as much cold calling as I do professionally, when it's about, or when there's a component that is related to something that's more personal, and the way that you give back to the community, the way that you are engaged with others, and not just in a, hey, I want to do business with you fashion, people are happy to do that. People love to talk with other people who want to help, right? We all want to help. And if someone is already helping and you also want to help, reach out, and 100% that they will be open to talking with you. Hopefully you can find a good fit that way.
That's great. I love the idea of searching your Alverno connections as well, because as we've said, we have so many alums that are doing such impactful volunteer work, and also some of whom are working with these nonprofits as a full-time career. And, we kind of we'll talk a little bit about your Alverno education, but I think having the understanding that everyone is coming from that same place too, and that they can recognize the skill sets that you've most likely developed as an Alverno alum, and the type of education that you have, and just the way that Alverno women are going back out into the community with this desire to make a difference. I love the idea of using that network to pursue those kinds of options as well. So speaking kind of your Alverno education, in what ways do you feel like the Alverno education has prepared you or has helped you to make a difference in your community?
Yeah, so Alverno's education is like none other. I mean, it prepares us in such a way that is directly applicable to the real world. I mean, I don't think there's anything that Alverno does that is not applicable in the real world. So we mentioned before, I was a professional communication major. Obviously, we communicate all day, every day. And so that is, the number one thing. And as I speak, it's obvious I'm not a super formal communicator. And I think that serves me well because being able to speak concisely and clearly and simply and connect to someone, that's what it's all about. So communication and the skills that I learned and the confidence I learned from Alverno is invaluable. It's priceless. Having the ability to believe in myself, put myself in uncomfortable situations, like giving a recorded interview for Alverno. That's something that Alverno prepares you for. The chance to say, yes, I'll try that, and not be afraid, because we're not competing with anybody. I mean, life feels like we're competing with everybody, but we're not. We're all moving through life together. And so it's really just, what do you want to do with your life? And then have the confidence to make those decisions and go after it yourself. And I entered Alverno not as a super confident person. I was a young person with limited life experience, but I left Alverno as a confident woman who had given countless speeches on tape and done all sorts of crazy things that I've never thought of doing or would have done otherwise. So just the experience that we gain at Alverno and doing all of the different things and being able to, after we've done something, pause, reflect on how we did, how we would change it going forward, and realize that life is not a series of like success versus failure. It's all of the experiences, and how do we learn and grow from all of those going forward.
One thing that really stood out to me in kind of the prep for this interview, and also other experiences that I've had with some of our great alums too, is that there's just this really genuine approachability to all of our alums, where you are a VP of commercial banking, and I feel like, who am I to reach out to her? But there's also just this attitude of how can I help you, or how can I make your life better in some way. And I just love that is woven into the fiber of the Alverno education as well. And I think it kind of speaks to the desire to give back and to support one another, and really to take an opportunity to say, hey, I'm at this point in my life, let me reach back and help you to move forward in your journey as well. So I'll say I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak with you, and it's been so wonderful getting to know some of our alums on a more personal level as well, and just being able to kind of hear that consistent messaging of, Alverno really instills in you a confidence that you've always had, but maybe wasn't at the surface. So it's wonderful to hear that, and I think it makes such a difference in terms of, we've kind of talked about, of like being comfortable enough to go to someone that you respect or someone that you work with and say, I'm interested in doing something new, or I'm interested in trying to give back in a way that maybe isn't a direct reflection of what I'm doing as a career. And I just really appreciate that is consistently recognized, and we hear from non-Alverno alums that they can recognize that in our women and men that have graduated from Alverno as well. So I really love that was kind of woven in as well. In terms of kind of the 8 abilities, do you find that those, we touched on it a little bit, but do you find that those continue to tie into the work that you're doing either professionally or as a volunteer?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's just, I actually had to go back and look up the 8 abilities. Like they were pounded into my head and like so deeply ingrained for all those years. And then when I graduated, I was like, oh, but so, yeah, I mean, the 8 abilities, it's just what life is all about. I feel like rather than going through school and getting an A or a B or C or whatever, and studying for the tests and cramming for all of the one-time events to pass and do the next task, the 8 abilities and really going through college and life and think about all of those ways that you can measure what you're doing. It gives you a critical thinking skill that stays with you for all time. And it's not something that's necessarily obvious to you, but it changes the way that your brain works. And so the 8 abilities, 100%. I think they have turned me into the person that I am. I mean, to look at everything from a global perspective, as a PCM major, having the aesthetic engagement and thinking about how things look and how people are going to react to the way things look and feel and sound, that's really cool. But communication, problem solving, social interaction, I mean, like these are all just the key to being a good human and a good part of the community and a good alum from Alverno. Like, let's represent ourselves as best we can and be good humans. And professionally, as well as through Revitalize, doing analysis and valuing, those are all so important in being able to assess a situation, determine the next steps, maximize the outcome, and engage the relevant parties. I could not have chosen a better school to go to. I could not have.
That's so great to hear. That makes me so happy. And it's funny in communicating with a lot of alums, it stands out to me because a lot of people have the similar reaction where it's like, I had to look them up, but when you're talking about it, it feels like, well, of course I have to have analysis skills, and of course I have to be a good communicator, and of course I need to be problem solving. That it seems as though kind of coming from a traditional, I started in a traditional educational kind of format, and it stood out to me coming to Alverno then as a non-traditional student and someone that had been kind of indoctrinated in that more formal and a little bit rigid educational approach to things, that Alverno teaches you things that, as you've said, are just innately in whatever you're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
I to me, that the biggest takeaway was that we might not realize that we're putting into use our effective citizenship skills, but we are in so much that we're doing. And, instead of just kind of regurgitating information, I feel like Alverno does such a great job of really teaching you how to be all of those things instead of just remembering, here's the 8 abilities, which I love that you put them all in there, which I was like counting them off as you were going. I was like, she's gotten 6. Oh, there's 7. So we hit the 8th one. But as you kind of said, it's a way of being not only personally but professionally that almost requires no additional thought once you've learned about it. That it just changes who you are as a person and how you interact in the world, which is so impactful and so great. And I just love that so many people have had that same experience and that we're able to continue that with the next generation and the next generation. And we're excited to welcome a new class into the alum society soon. But just the fact that they can also hear that you might not be able to rattle them off really quick, in 10 years, but you are living them. And I just love that so much. So thank you for touching on that and for including all 8, which is great. So kind of our final question, and we love to ask this of alums, but what does Alverno Strong mean to you?
Yeah, so I gave this one a lot of thought, and the simple answer, the short answer is having self-awareness and the confidence to act on, your instincts, to believe in yourself and to move forward in the world in a way that is meaningful to you. I think that's what Alverno is. It's making each of us our best selves, preparing us for the world, and not comparing us to anyone else other than ourselves, right? We're all our own person, and let's just do the best we can and prepare ourselves to live our best lives and improve the world. So there is an author named James Clear, and I'm just going to read one of his quotes because I think this ties into Alverno Strong really closely and how I think of it. So James Clear quotes, "It doesn't matter how successful or unsuccessful you are right now. What matters is whether your habits are putting you on the path towards success. You should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than with your current results." End quote. And he also says, we can't control luck, but we can control effort and preparation. And, that's Alverno. We're all born into this world. We come from where we come from. We have no say in the matter, but we can control where we go and what effort we put into our life story. And Alverno does a really great job of teaching us to be strong and confident and make the trajectory as steep or as gradual as we want to have the greatest outcomes in life.
That's great. And that was a great quote. I think it really does tie in well. So I wanted to just say thank you so much, Jen, for joining us today and for sharing all of your time, talent, and treasures as we touched on. And it's been so great to have the opportunity to get to know you better and learn more about your work with Revitalize and with BMO in terms of all that you're doing for the greater Milwaukee community as well. So thank you very, very much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you as part of our community, and we look forward to continuing to see all that you do in the future.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Great. Thank you so much.